Vinny Dingle was manipulated by Paul Ashdale into splitting up with girlfriend Liv Flaherty in Emmerdale. Aware Liv was getting closer to the truth, Paul abused Vinny and convinced him it would be best if he split up from Liv. His plan worked, but Liv was aware something wasn't right, and during the huge week that saw the barn explosion and Paul's death, the truth about his abusive behavior finally came to light. As Vinny struggles to deal with the aftermath of Paul's death and his abuse, Liv attempts to offer her support, but Vinny ends up pushing her away again. Vinny's prepared to face the day as the hearse arrives outside the Dingles. Mandy's on edge, wanting to support Vinny but unable to honor Paul's memory. She tells Lydia to keep Vinny inside as she heads out, needing to say goodbye in her own way. However, Mandy struggles to control her emotions as she speaks directly to Paul's coffin, saying he doesn't deserve a funeral. Vinny walks back out, overhears and tells Mandy she should be ashamed. Vinny ends up all alone as he walks through the village behind the hearse. Liv is desperate to show Vinny her support but he refuses to look at her. Inside the church, Vinny braces himself to read out his eulogy but he's unable to finish and flees. Will Liv find Vinny? Will Vinny ever feel he can get back with Liv? Another news, Lydia Dingle has been the calming presence Mandy and Vinny have needed since the explosion and Paul Ashdale's death in Emmerdale. However, Lydia's calm persona disappeared at the end of tonight's episode when she discovers Paul has left her with huge credit card debts. The atmosphere was tense in the Dingles household as we opened tonight's episode. Mandy and Vinny still weren't really talking to each other after Vinny told his mum she wasn't welcome at Paul's funeral. Meanwhile, Aaron and Chaz were busy in the pub talking about a struggling Liv when they were interrupted by Jimmy, who had made a collection box to try and raise money for Paul's funeral, with no idea of the reality Vinny had been faced with for months. As an emotional Mandy arrived at the pub at the exact moment Aaron, Chaz, Jimmy and Nicola were talking about her, she decided to reveal all, and told Jimmy and Nicola that Paul had been abusing Vinny. When a livid Vinny arrived after discovering the news, Lydia tried to calm him down, but he shut her off, telling her to stop trying to tell him how to feel. After, a beautiful scene between the two of them allowed Lydia to remind Vinny that Mandy was doing her best, and he would eventually forgive her in time. Desperate to help her family, Lydia spoke to Sam about the lack of money Vinny had to fund Paul's funeral, and wanted to do her bit, so made her way into town to try and get a bank loan. However, after returning home, Lydia told Sam she wasn't able to get a loan, as someone had been taken out a string of transactions in her name, Paul. With Lydia now in thousands of pounds worth of debt, and no real way of proving it wasn't her that took the money out, how will she get out of this mess? What will the Dingles do to help her?